The earth, you know, the one you walk across every single day, is only a surface. A thin, sunlit skin stretched over something far older and far stranger. Because right beneath your feet, the world doesn't just end, it opens up. It takes you down, past the deepest roots of the forest, past the deepest mine ever dug by human hands, into a timeless darkness that, in all of Earth's history, has never seen a single ray of sun. And down here, in that endless night, there are places that should not exist. Crystals taller than a man. Rivers that flow toward no ocean. Cathedrals of stone that no architect ever drew. Forests that grow where sunlight was never meant to reach. There are chambers so immense you could lose a city inside them. Ceilings that glow like a night sky. And walls carved by human hands, hands we still cannot name, for reasons no one has ever been able to explain. How they formed. Who built them? What still lives inside them, far from the sun? For some of these places, the honest answer, even today with all of our science, is that no one knows. And now we go down, into the underground places on Earth that no one can explain. In 1963, in the Cappadocia region of Turkey, a man was renovating his home. He knocked down a wall in his basement, and behind it, he found a passage. A dark tunnel leading down into the rock beneath his house. He had no idea he'd just opened the door to one of the greatest underground discoveries ever made. Following that passage down, explorers found a room, then a staircase, then another level of rooms, and another staircase going deeper. And it kept going, down past where anyone expected it to stop. What that man had found behind his basement wall was not a cellar or a cave. It was an entire city carved straight down into the earth. This is Derinkuyu, and it goes down 18 levels, reaching roughly 85 meters into the ground, the height of a 20-story building, but downward. Derinkuyu was a complete underground city, and by some estimates it could shelter as many as 20,000 people at once. Not just people, their livestock too. Down in the dark, cut from the soft volcanic rock, there were stables for animals, kitchens, storerooms for food, wells for fresh water, presses for wine and oil, chapels, even schools. Whole communities could vanish beneath the surface and live down here for long periods at a time, with everything they needed to survive. And it was built with real ingenuity. More than 15,000 small ventilation shafts were cut through the city, carrying fresh air down even to the lower levels, so thousands of people and animals could breathe far underground. The whole city could be sealed from the inside, huge circular stone doors, like millstones, rolled across the tunnels to block them, doors that could only be moved from within. A raiding army could take the town on the surface without ever realizing that much of its population had slipped into the earth beneath their feet, sealed behind half-ton wheels of stone. The purpose, at least in later centuries, is fairly clear. This was a refuge. When armies swept across this land, and over the centuries many did, the people went underground and waited them out. But there's a deeper question here, one archaeologists still argue over. What's agreed is that Derinkuyu was expanded and reused by many different communities across long stretches of time. The people who sheltered here in Christian centuries were only the most recent. What's disputed is the beginning, when the first chambers were cut, and who began the work. Some credit an early Anatolian people who may have started digging here around 2,500 years ago. Others point to a culture older still. Exactly who first carved straight down into this rock, and how they cut a city this deep and kept it standing level after level, is even now an open question. And Derinkuyu may not even be alone. It appears to connect by tunnel to other underground cities nearby, part of a hidden network beneath Cappadocia, whose full extent is still being mapped. In the Zhejiang province of eastern China, near a small village, there were several ponds the local people had known for as long as anyone could remember. Dark, still water, and an old belief passed down for generations that these ponds were bottomless, that their depths simply went down forever. In 1992, some of them decided to test that old story. They brought in pumps and began draining one of the ponds, expecting mud or fish or nothing. Instead, as the water fell, walls began to rise out of it. Straight, carved, man-made walls. What they had taken for a bottomless pond was in fact the flooded entrance to an enormous hand-carved cavern, hidden beneath the water and lost from memory for what may be more than 2,000 years. And when they drained the ponds nearby, they found more. And then more. In total, 24 of these caverns have been uncovered, the Longyou caves. Together, they cover around 30,000 square meters, carved into solid siltstone. Some chambers are enormous, with ceilings up to 30 meters high, held up by great pillars left in place to support the roof. To hollow them out, someone removed an estimated 1 million cubic meters of rock. This was not a quick job. It was one of the largest hand-carving efforts of the ancient world. And then there are the walls. Every surface, walls, ceilings, pillars, is covered top to bottom in the same fine chisel marks. Parallel lines, cut at a consistent angle, in neat bands across all 24 caves. The uniformity is almost eerie, the same technique, the same precision, the same pattern, repeated across tens of thousands of square meters. Whoever did this worked to a single disciplined method, and never seems to have broken from it. But here's what turns Longyou from an impressive feat into a genuine unsolved mystery. Carving these caves would have taken an enormous workforce, years of labor and careful planning. A project on that scale should have been an event, something a ruler would record, a reason someone would write down, a workforce of thousands that history would remember. And there is almost none of that. In all of China's vast written record, no account has ever been securely tied to who dug the Longyou caves, when exactly, or why. Only a single stray mention in a poem composed many centuries later. There are no inscriptions inside naming a builder. A few simple chisels have been recovered, enough to show the work was done by hand, but not enough to say by whom or to what end. Archaeologists have proposed everything: a quarry, a tomb, a hidden barracks, a storehouse, but none of it has won broad agreement. 2,000 years on, the people who moved 1 million cubic meters of stone remain essentially anonymous. A hidden world with no author, one of the strangest things people have ever left in the ground. But the Longyou caves, for all their mystery, were empty. Rooms with no clear purpose. Our final place is different, because it wasn't just carved. It was lived in by tens of thousands of people, going down and down, level after level, deeper than seems possible. And like Longyou, its deepest secrets have never been fully explained. In the west of India, in the Ellora caves of Maharashtra, stands one of the most beautiful temples in the country. 3 stories tall, covered in gods and elephants and scenes from ancient epics, with towers and courtyards and pillared halls. Dedicated to the god Shiva, it has stood for around 1,200 years. From the outside, it looks like a magnificent stone temple, built block by block, the way temples are built everywhere. Except it wasn't. Look closer, and you realize the temple sits inside a huge pit carved down into the cliff, and the temple and the rock walls around it are not separate pieces. They are the same single, unbroken mass of stone. This entire structure, every tower, every staircase, every one of its thousands of carvings, was not built up from the ground. It was cut downward out of one solid mountain of rock. And that single fact turns this from a beautiful temple into one of the most baffling engineering feats of the ancient world. This is the Kailasa temple. To make it, ancient craftsmen started at the top of a rocky hillside and carved straight down, chiseling away everything that wasn't the temple. They removed an estimated 200,000 to 400,000 tons of rock by hand, and what they left behind, in the empty space was a complete 3-story temple. It is the largest structure of its kind on Earth, carved from a single rock. Now here's what genuinely troubles the engineers who study it. When you build a temple normally, from the ground up, you can fix mistakes, recut a bad block, replace a cracked column. But when you carve downward out of one piece of stone, there is no undo. Every cut is permanent. A serious error near the top, a misjudged angle, a wall left too thin, and everything below it could be ruined. The basic method itself is understood. The workers cut downward and inward through the basalt in an organized, disciplined effort, using the tools of their age. What hasn't survived is the plan. The sequence they worked in, the measurements, how a complete 3-story design was transferred onto solid rock before there was a single wall to check it against. How the labor was divided across a huge workforce and across the reigns of more than one king. We know this was done by human hands. What we've lost is the blueprint for how those hands pulled it off across generations in stone that offered no second chances. Not because the answer is supernatural, but because the skill and coordination it demanded are, frankly, hard to believe. With Kailasa, at least we know who built it and why. A king for his god. The mystery is only the how. But travel east into China and you reach a place where even that much falls apart, where the carving is just as vast and demanded a scale of hand labor just as hard to comprehend. But there are no gods on the walls. No dedicatory inscription, no ruler's name, no purpose anyone can name, and barely a trace in all of recorded history of who made it. At first glance, this looks like the ruin of some forgotten temple. A cavern the size of a stadium, buried deep underground, its ceiling held up by 59 massive pillars standing in perfect rows, vanishing into shadow. The people who come here call it exactly what it looks like, the underground temple. Stand inside, and the silence and the scale feel genuinely sacred. But there's something strange about this temple. It has no altar, no carvings, no gods, and it isn't ancient at all. This colossal hall sits beneath the outskirts of Tokyo, and it was finished in 2006. Many of the people watching this were already alive when it was built. This is the Metropolitan Area Outer Underground Discharge Channel, known simply as GCANS. On the surface, there's almost nothing to see. Quiet suburbs, a sports field, ordinary neighborhoods. But directly below lies one of the largest flood control systems on Earth. Each of those 59 pillars weighs around 500 tons. The tank they hold up is longer than a football pitch and tall enough to feel like a canyon. And for most of its life, it sits silent and empty, waiting. Because this temple was built to do one thing: to stop a city from drowning. Tokyo sits low in a basin of rivers in the path of typhoons. When the heaviest rains come, the smaller rivers rise fast and threaten to spill into neighborhoods where millions live. So Japanese engineers went underground. When the floods hit, stormwater pours into 5 gigantic silos, each deep enough to swallow a space shuttle, races through miles of tunnel 50 meters down, and empties into this enormous tank. From here, pumps driven by engines like the ones in jet aircraft blast the water out into a larger river at a rate of 200 tons every second. And when the storm passes, the water drains, and the underground temple falls silent once more, an empty cathedral of concrete holding back catastrophe in the dark. It is one of the most impressive things we have ever built beneath our own feet. And we know everything about it: who built it, when, and why. Every measurement documented, every pillar accounted for. And that is exactly what makes the next places so unsettling. Because if a structure this enormous, this temple-like, can be raised in our own lifetime, with cranes and concrete and engineering degrees, then what are we to make of the underground wonders that are genuinely ancient? The ones carved thousands of years ago without any of that. GCANS leaves behind blueprints, dates, names, and measurements. The places we go next leave almost none of those things. Near the Polish city of Krakow, a staircase leads down into the dark, hundreds of wooden steps descending into one of the world's oldest continuously worked salt mines. For 7 centuries, from the Middle Ages until the 1990s, miners came down into this darkness to cut one of the most valuable substances of the medieval world: salt. This is the Wieliczka salt mine. Beneath the green Polish countryside, it opens into a labyrinth almost impossible to picture. Around 300 kilometers of tunnels across 9 levels, reaching more than 300 meters underground. Enough passageway to stretch from one city to the next, all of it hollowed out by hand over 700 years. Down here, there are underground lakes of brine, so saturated with salt you could float on them. There are chambers the size of concert halls, and the miners who spent their lives in this darkness, often not seeing daylight for the length of a shift, did something with it that no one ever asked them to do. They built a cathedral underground, out of the salt itself. This is the chapel of Saint Kinga, the largest underground church in Europe, more than 100 meters below the surface, over 50 meters long, with soaring ceilings and religious scenes carved in astonishing detail across the walls. And every single piece of it, the floor beneath your feet, the statues, the altar, the intricate reliefs, was carved directly out of solid rock salt. Even the chandeliers overhead are salt. The miners took raw salt crystals, dissolved and cleaned them until they were clear as glass and rebuilt them into fixtures that could pass for crystal in any grand cathedral in Europe. The floor is salt, patterned to look like tile. Run your hand along a wall and it isn't stone, it's salt. And the devotion behind it is almost harder to grasp than the chapel itself. This was not commissioned by a king or drawn by a famous architect. It was carved by ordinary miners, self-taught, working in their own time, deep in the earth. The chapel took around 70 years, passed from one generation of carvers to the next. Men who spent their days cutting salt for a living spent their spare hours turning that same salt into a place to pray. And to this day, more than 100 meters underground, Mass is still held there. Wieliczka is what happens when people pour centuries of faith and patience into the rock beneath them, a wonder built slowly by hand, out of devotion. But some underground cathedrals weren't built for faith at all. In Japan, there is a vast hall of towering pillars that looks every bit as ancient and sacred as this one. A true temple beneath the earth, except it isn't old. It was finished barely 20 years ago, and it was built for one purpose, to swallow a flood. This is one of the most hostile places anyone has ever chosen to call home. A scorched stretch of the South Australian outback, where summer heat climbs well past 40 degrees in the shade. And there is almost no shade. The ground is cracked, the horizon is empty. It looks less like a town and more like the surface of another planet. And yet a couple of thousand people live here. This is Coober, Pedy, the opal capital of the world, where fortunes have been dug out of the dirt for over a century. But drive through at midday and you might wonder where everyone is. The streets can feel almost deserted because in Coober, Pedy, the town isn't really up here. It's down there. To escape a heat that can genuinely kill, the people of Coober, Pedy did something remarkable. They didn't build shelter against the sun. They moved their entire lives underground, carving their homes straight into the rock. They call them dugouts. And these are not caves in any rough sense. Behind those unassuming entrances are full family homes, living rooms and bedrooms and kitchens, all hollowed out of the sandstone. The rock does what no air conditioner out here could afford to. It holds a steady, comfortable temperature all year round, while the surface bakes or freezes above. No blazing afternoons, no power bill to survive the summer, just cool, quiet stone. It changes daily life in quieter ways too. A dugout has no windows and the temperature never shifts. So residents talk about losing track of day and night, glancing at a clock to know whether it's noon or midnight outside. But the trade is worth it. Up on the surface in high summer, this is heat that can kill, which is exactly why, generations ago, this town went under in the first place. The same stone that hides these families is what keeps them alive. And it doesn't stop at houses. Walk the tunnels of Coober, Pedy, and you find an entire town that has gone underground with its people. There are underground churches, their altars and arches cut straight from the rock. Underground hotels, where you sleep a dozen meters beneath the desert. Bars, shops, a gallery, even a bookshop, all carved into the earth. People are born, married, and buried in this stone town. Above ground, one of the harshest deserts on the continent. Below it, a cool hidden world where daily life simply carries on. And here's the detail that makes Coober Pedy feel almost like a fable. This is opal country, so every so often, someone digging out a new bedroom or widening a hallway in their own home strikes a seam of precious opal in the wall. It doesn't happen to everyone, but a lucky few have offset the cost of their home with what they pulled out of its own walls. Coober Pedy chose the underground for the most practical reason there is: survival, comfort carved out of rock. But not every underground wonder was built to keep people alive. On the far side of the world, deep beneath Poland, generations of miners carved something into the earth for a very different reason. Not to survive the world, but to reach toward heaven. On the surface, this is one of the busiest corners of Istanbul. Traffic, crowds, the call to prayer, 15 million people going about their day. Almost none of them know that a few steps away, there is a doorway. And behind that doorway, a staircase leading straight down out of the noise into another world entirely. The deeper you go, the cooler and quieter it becomes. The sounds of the city fade, and then the space opens, and in front of you stands something that looks less like a basement and more like a drowned palace. Rows of stone columns marching off into the darkness in every direction. Their bases vanish into black water, so still it turns the whole chamber into a mirror. The locals gave it a fitting name. They call it Yerebatan Sarayi, the sunken palace. And the scale is real. 336 marble columns, each around 9 meters tall, arranged in 12 long rows. Above them, brick vaults strong enough to have held for 15 centuries. Below them, a reservoir once capable of holding roughly 80,000 cubic meters of water, enough to fill dozens of Olympic swimming pools, hidden entirely beneath the streets of the city. But here is the strange part. For hundreds of years, almost no one knew this palace of water was here at all. It was built in the 6th century on the orders of the Byzantine Emperor Justinian, the same emperor in the same era who raised the great domed church of Hagia Sophia just overhead. After a devastating uprising tore through the city, Justinian rebuilt on a colossal scale, and this cistern was part of that ambition. A hidden reservoir feeding fresh water to the imperial palace, carried in by aqueduct from a forest nearly 20 kilometers away. Then the empire fell. The city changed hands, changed names, changed faith. And somewhere along the way, the sunken palace was simply forgotten. Houses were built directly on top of it. Families lived their whole lives above a hidden lake and never knew. Until, in the middle of the 16th century, a visiting French scholar noticed something odd. The people living in this neighborhood were lowering buckets through holes in their basement floors and drawing up fresh water. Some of them, he learned, were even catching fish down there in the dark beneath their own homes. He followed the water down, and by lantern light, he became one of the first in centuries to stand at the edge of that forest of columns, a forgotten cathedral of water, drowned and waiting beneath a living city. And if you walk to the far, quiet end of the hall today, you find the one detail that still refuses to give up its secret. Two of the columns don't rest on ordinary bases. They rest on the carved heads of Medusa, the monster of myth whose gaze turned men to stone, and they've been placed wrong. One head is turned fully upside down. The other lies on its side. Nobody knows for certain why. The likeliest answer is almost ordinary. These heads were spare parts. Justinian's builders raided older, ruined Roman temples for material, and you can see it everywhere here. Mismatched columns, different styles standing side by side. The Medusa heads may simply have been two handy blocks of the right size, set down at whatever angle made them fit. But the honest answer is that we don't truly know. Were they turned away so their deadly gaze couldn't harm anyone? Placed upside down to break the old pagan power? Or just dropped into position by a tired workman with no thought at all? 1,500 years later, the faces stare up out of the water, and they aren't telling. We like to think we've mapped our world, that the age of discovery is over, that whatever is left to find is out among the stars. But these places tell a different story. Beneath the streets of a living city, a drowned palace of columns and stone faces. Under a desert, a town still quietly going about its life. A cathedral of salt. A temple carved from a single mountain. Chambers no history remembers. A city reaching 18 floors down into the dark. They remind us that some of the greatest works of human hands were made not by reaching up, but by digging down. And that, even now, with all our maps and all our machines, the ground beneath our feet still keeps its secrets. We've walked through 7 of them tonight. And somewhere out there, in the dark, under the rock, there are almost certainly more, still waiting to be found.